I found a burnt Ouija board. Part 1. Written and narrated by Lady Spookaria. Please remember this story has disturbing themes and references to deleting self. Keep this in mind when listening to this story. Viewer discretion is advised. I should start at the beginning. I come from a small town in the US. One of the places where everyone knows everyone else. My family consists of my mother and my 3 younger siblings. Emily, she is 15, Scott, who is 12, and Emmett, who is 5. I'm 18 and the eldest child, and I was going to go to college, but, unfortunately, my family couldn't afford it, and I needed to work in order to support the household. My father, my late father, fought a long battle with cancer. And if anyone knows about the US health system, it put us in serious debt and a lot of financial ruin. Mum had to get several jobs in order for us to just get by. And there were times when it was left for me to raise my younger siblings while she was gone. I missed my dad and the life we had before everything changed for us. I miss spending time with him. Things changed, though. My mother got a new job in a town in another state, but that meant we would have to move. The increase in pay would mean we wouldn't struggle to afford necessities anymore, and Mum would only have to work 1 job. There was no way she was going to turn it down, even if it meant we would be leaving our family and friends. We sold the belongings we couldn't take, packed the rest, and drove interstate. My younger siblings slept most of the way. My mother and I took turns driving before we arrived. The house was old, run down, and we would have to do a lot of work on it. It looked ugly from the outside. The streetlights gave a hint of light that only highlighted the shadows, and I found myself feeling uneasy the more I looked at it. My mother, exhausted, patted my shoulder and told us that we would be all sleeping in the living room. Things were set up for us all to sleep, and I was too tired to ask how this happened. After herding my siblings to get ready to sleep, I flopped on the couch. I could have sworn I heard my mother cry while I drifted off to sleep. I didn't dream like I usually did. The early morning sunlight peeked through the curtains. I woke up to the sounds of my siblings' loud snoring. With a groan, I stood up and looked around the new environment. All the furniture in the home was old, maybe from the 70s or the 80s. I couldn't quite tell. The old TV was a large box with dials to turn. The house looked like a time capsule, and considering I was the first one up, I wanted to explore and see what was around. I walked through the hallway and felt guilty when I saw a picture of an elderly couple. They were smiling, happy. I couldn't shake the feeling I was intruding on their personal space. I went into the kitchen. Everything was in its proper place, and clearly, someone took a lot of pride in their home. I figured that the elderly couple grew old, died, or were placed into a nursing home, and their children couldn't be bothered to deal with the old house. I walked up the creaking stairs to the bedrooms. The first was decorated with a light blue and had toys inside. Maybe they looked after their grandchildren sometimes. It was a puzzle. I wanted to learn everything about them. What were they like? Were they good people? Did they have any family who wanted some of this stuff back? I asked myself these questions as I peeked into the small bathroom. Again, it was dated, but clearly it had been well cared for. all except for a layer of dust that coated everything. I walked towards the master bedroom. I opened the door, and instantly, the musty smell alerted me to the fact the room hadn't been opened for some time. I wrinkled my nose and tried to turn on the old light switch. It didn't work, and I didn't really expect it to. I walked inside, and all of their personal items were still there. Hairbrushes, clothing, photographs, ornaments, and various mementos from their lives. It looked as though they had just left, like they could return at any moment. I kept looking around and saw the closet. It was locked. I lifted the lock and saw it had been welded shut. Odd, I thought to myself. I noticed what looked like black ash around the doorframe and groaned loudly. Black mold? That was the last thing we needed to deal with. When I looked closer at it, it looked more like tar or something. I was about to touch it when I heard a loud bang from the doorway. I saw my mother at the door. She had bags under her eyes and looked utterly exhausted. She handed me some cleaning supplies, and she didn't need to explain what that meant. The house belonged to a couple that lived here with their children. Their children died, my mother said, walked in and looked at some of their possessions. We would need to keep a lot of the furniture since most of ours was sold, or we couldn't afford to bring it with us. It isn't the best, I know, but who knows what will happen, she encouraged. Opened up one of the drawers, shrugged and then closed it with a sigh. I found my gaze drawn to the closet once more. There was something about it. Do you want to sort out this room? Put things in 3 piles. Keep, donate, or sell. Hopefully we can find things to sell and get some cash together. I'm gonna go and get breakfast ready. Not give me room to answer, and I was content enough to comply. I opened one of the garbage bags and tossed the hairbrushes inside. I opened the drawers and began to sort through the clothes. Most of it was pretty good quality, just in an older style. As I focused on my task, I could have sworn I heard scratching coming from the closet and the walls. There was no specific place it was coming from either. When I stopped and looked around, the sound completely stopped, and I paused to try to pinpoint where it came from. It was silent. I shook my head and got back to work, sorting the clothes, and I could have sworn I heard a faint "Open the door. Come and see." I froze. While I believed there was a possibility of ghosts, I never saw anything supernatural, and didn't believe that anything could happen to me. I looked around again, and perhaps gave the most stereotypical response. Hello? Open the door. Come and see. What? I whimpered. It was then I heard the insane giggling from my siblings. Emily, who had an incredible ability to sneak anywhere. When God created her, he maxed out her sneak skill and unfortunately not much else. I threw a pillow at her. "Why are you like this?" I laughed, and she threw it back at me, still giggling loudly. She didn't say anything, other than giving me a smug look of victory as she fled the scene. I shook my head and got back to work, putting the items into different piles to be organized. I couldn't help but keep glancing back towards the closet. and ever since Emily spooked me, I had a feeling I was being watched. I got up and went into the kitchen to grab some of the cold breakfast. My younger siblings were all chatting to themselves, and my mum leaned on the kitchen sink with her cup of coffee. She looked so drained. I felt bad for her. The last couple of years have been difficult for all of us, but her most of all. I cleared out the drawers and things. What are we going to do with the photographs and things like that? I asked. The old photographs had no monetary value, but my mother was always sentimental, even about other people's belongings. We can store them in the attic. It just doesn't feel right to throw someone's memories and lives away, she answered, not looking at me. I know she was thinking about Dad and the family. I nodded and was about to go hug her. Just something to show that I cared, that I was there for her. But I didn't, and I don't know why. I hurried up the stairs and began to gather the photographs off the walls. It was our home now, and seeing them made it feel like it wasn't truly ours. As I walked around, I noticed we had a basement. I've always been incredibly uncomfortable when I see basements. Maybe because all the houses I lived in never had them, or maybe I saw one too many paranormal TV shows about them. As I headed towards the attic, I pulled down the ladder, took a flashlight, and turned it on to light my way. It was hot and stuffy in the attic. It was packed with various items, and I groaned about the thought of having to sort through all of this. I saw various suitcases, chests, chairs, and what looked like to be many boxes, full of items. I put the picture frames down, and as I was going down the stairs, I could have sworn I heard scratching and tapping. For fuck's sakes, it better not be fucking rats. I hissed under my breath and closed the attic door. I heard the chaos of my siblings and my mum leaving for school. I called out bye to them, and it was the first time I was alone in the new house. I saw the lounge room was set up as a makeshift bedroom for us until everything was cleaned and sorted. I couldn't help but smile when I saw a picture frame of the family up. All of us were smiling, and Dad was there, back during happier times for us. I knew Mum would be late getting back. She needed to do some things in town and would want to get everything out of the way. I gathered the dishes and began to wash them. Maybe this house would end up being a good thing for us. I stared out into the messy backyard and saw garden sheds. Everything was overgrown and had not been maintained for some time. Considering the age of the previous owners, it made a lot of sense. Once I was done, I cleaned the sink and dried my hands before going into the backyard to wander around. I found a long stick and struck at the grass in order to warn any potential snakes that I was approaching. Better to give them some warning rather than scare them and get bitten. I found an area where no grass grew. Instead of the lush grass that grew quite tall, this was barren. There was no signs of life or growth. I felt like I found some kind of secret. What the hell? I murmured to myself, in the center of the crisp, empty circle. In the middle, there was a misshapen rock that I would struggle to lift by myself, and was surrounded by ash. Maybe this was where they had their barbecues or something. I brushed away the ash from the top of the rock, and it revealed a strange symbol. I have some friends who dabble in the occult, and I knew it was a pentagram. I took out my phone, took a photo, and sent it to my friends via Snapchat with the caption, "Check this out. What do you think it is?" The more I stood here, the more my stomach began to turn. It ached and I rested my hand on top of it, trying to soothe it. My knees grew weak. I started to choke and gag. I could smell something completely foul, a rotting and burning smell, and I hurried to step back. I knew I needed to tell my mother about it, to let her know that something was off here. Once I was away from it, I instantly felt better and breathed a sigh of relief. When I looked back at the house, I saw a figure watching me from the window. I was home alone. It looked like the old man from the photo, just watching me. This shouldn't be happening. I don't know how long I stared at him before the face disappeared. Was it the old man from the picture? The happy-looking elderly couple no longer seemed so innocent anymore. I checked my phone. There were no messages from my friends. As I walked back inside, I decided against telling my family about the man in the window. I just needed them to stay the hell away from whatever it was in the backyard, just in case the kids ended up getting hurt, or maybe it was polluted or something. I went back up to the master bedroom I'd been working on. Nothing changed. The piles were all still in place and I sat on the bed. I opened the bedside table and felt guilty about the invasion of privacy, hoping not to find anything awkward or incriminating. There was some jewelry, a diary, and some old letters. I wanted to get to know the couple that lived here. Perhaps I'll be able to find something to help them move on. I opened the journal and began to read. The first entry was dated 17th of September, 2014. I learned that the woman's name was Martha and her husband's name was Edward. The pair of them lived here with their 2 children, a son called Justin and a daughter called Augustine. Augustine had a marriage that had broken down and came home to live with her parents again with her daughter, Celeste. As I read, I noticed something. There were only pictures of the elderly couple. No family pictures. I never saw any pictures of Justin, or Augustine, or Celeste. Why were they excluded from being shown? I felt uneasy about this. Maybe there was a family disagreement that led to this. I kept reading the cursive writing, hoping to find an answer. She said that Justin spent most of his time in the basement and complained he didn't do anything to improve his life. He would fondle himself, eat pizza, and do nothing else. I groaned at the thought of having to clean the already creepy-ass basement. I quickly read through the following pages. Augustine became desperate, and from what her mother thought, she would try dating anyone and everyone before indulging in alcohol to excess. She left to stay with her new boyfriend and cut contact with him, leaving the elderly pair to raise her daughter, Celeste. The next entry of note was in October 2017. Celeste was now 15 and had begun to dabble in the occult herself. I instantly thought to the strange markings in the symbol on the rock outside. I couldn't resist gulping and read on. I noticed Martha's handwriting was more erratic and it was harder for her to understand what was going on. It was harder for me to read as well. She said that Celeste had begun using Ouija boards in an attempt to find out what happened to her mother, and had ignored all the warnings she received. They even called the local priest to attempt to talk some sense into her, but she kept going. Martha said she heard strange whispers, knocking sounds, and started to see shadows out of the corner of her eye. Justin, who had always been self-destructed, began to scream at all hours of the day and night. When they asked him what was wrong, he wouldn't answer. He lost his ability to speak. None of the doctors could find a cure or a reason. Celeste told them that it was because one of the spirits she dealt with was angry with him. If Martha knew any other possible reason why, she didn't write it. I watched enough ghost-related TV shows to know that staying in this house was a terrible idea. The problem was, we had nowhere else to go. We were stuck here. My heart sank. I flicked through the pages to get an idea what happened, and saw that the sentences became shorter and less long-winded. I got the impression that Martha was normally quite a chatty person, or had a lot on her mind. Mostly near the end, it was her being concerned for Celeste, until I found a page. Justin took his own life in the basement when they were all out one day. She said there was blood all over the walls, and the police wondered if they ever had a pet dog or something. They never owned a dog or any pets at all, due to Martha being allergic. I kept reading. What happened to Celeste? I was curious, and maybe this wasn't the best idea. I went back to the journal and flicked through the pages to find the last page. I froze and read the words out loud. Celeste is not herself. Something else is inside her now. Our darling Celeste is gone. The witch told us to destroy all references to her, or she will remain. We cannot live with the guilt of what we had to do. God and Celeste, we are sorry we failed you. Please forgive us. I now understood why we managed to get the house so cheap. I didn't know where they did the deed. I wondered more and more. There was no mention of Celeste being found, and the couple weren't arrested, so where... Outside, I heard a car beep and stood up. I left the diary on the bed and walked to the window to see Mum with a car full of our things, cleaning supplies and everything else. I ran down the stairs and went to help her take things inside. So, how much do you know about the history of the house? I asked her. My mother paused as though I'd struck her. How did you find out? Oh, I found the old woman's diary. This is weird shit, Mum. 3 suicides? And I think there may be a grave out back too. Shh! Shut up. This is the only place we managed to go. Don't... She stiffened. And I knew she was doing her best. There was a loud sound of the back door slamming, and we both instantly stared at the door. On either side of the side window stood Martha, and in the other, Edward stood, staring at us. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the story. So, what do you think happened to Celeste? Let me know in the comment section down below. Part 2 will be coming soon. Until then, why not check out one of my previous stories? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell if you haven't already. It greatly helps me out. We all must please this Susan. This video is made with the support of my incredible Patreons, channel members, and top tippers. All support is greatly appreciated. Check out my merch and my Throne account as well. All my social media links are in the description down below. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.